Alright, we're starting our deep dive on the advanced certification. Already we see Greg on the right, away from the line, and he's already starting to move into that prone position, which is what we're desiring. Dalton still holding on to his comfort line, which is fine. At this point, Dalton, we want to be looking to move into that same position that your dive buddy Greg is doing. It's a fair way down, where it's about 80 to 90 feet at the bottom. And obviously a lot colder. I think the high down at the bottom was 46 degrees Fahrenheit. You're starting to see the bottom coming into focus, and there's the army truck. Greg doing a really good job of staying with his buddy. And he's now prompting him to move across to the bed of the army truck, which we had already decided was going to be the spot where everyone would line up. In focus right now is Dan RC, and he's kind of in a more upright position than he ought to be. He should be more prone at that, moving across there. And Dan at the very end there is kicking up a bit of silt because the water's not murky enough. And here comes Dalton into focus, and he's going to take that position there. I'm now going to look to move over the top and swivel round to face them. Everybody waving hello for the camera, but there's the Joker at the end. The whole idea of this exercise is to write their last names backwards while I record how long it takes them, to see whether or not they're affected by any form of narcosis. Dan's clearly affected by narcosis at this point. So Greg decides to write down, "I'm peeing right now," which is one way of warming up your wetsuit. Now Dan, at the very end here, has been tasked with navigating back to our entry point on the surface, quite some distance away, and he's going to get his compass out and figure out his heading. A little unstable in the water. I see a bit of hand movement there, which is not something we're desiring when we're scuba diving, and obviously not buoyant at this point. I think his buoyancy, he should have worked on getting that ready first before he looked at his compass. Greg decided to take a slip on the bed of the truck. Anyway, here we go. So Dan is off, and already his position is too upright. He's now pushing a column of water in front of him, which is making him very inefficient and causing him to breathe quite heavy. hot on his fins is Dan, his dive buddy, who is quite low and consequently will start to kick up a plume of silt because Dutch Springs isn't really murky enough for him, or perhaps he just wants to make it murky for the people behind it. Kudos to Dalton here, who's starting to show that he's been observing me in the water and starting to use the frog kick. And just look at Greg. Wow, he's like, I'm gonna get down as deep as I can. Greg's trim in the water is definitely the better of all four. Although he has been diving considerably longer. Consequently has more experience. At this point, Dan RC's like, you know what, we're off course here. And he's right, we are. And he's going to tell his dive buddy, the other Dan, that, yeah, we need to be going that way. Oh look, a cloud of silt. Dan RC must have just gone through here. At this point, there's some confusion. Dan RC decides, you know what, enough is enough. I'm just going to lie in the mud. I'm going to take over the lead. And see if I can make my way back. And what you can see here are some lines with weights on them. So we're clearly way out on the west side, underneath the actual water park that's also built on Dutch Springs. I see Dan is starting to use a simulated frog kick. He's still a little too upright. Still pushing that column of water in front of him. He wants to get his head down, more of that prone position. At this point, there's some dust cloud, and this isn't from any of our guys. Somebody else had been through here, kicking up the silt, and we came across a school of fish that were actually feeding on scraps that had been kicked up. Right, so we've started to make ourselves a lot shallower. We've figured out the direction and slowly making our way to the surface while still moving east along the wall. Certainly a lot warmer up closer to the surface. And the idea is that as we're swimming along here, we're shallow enough that we're doing our decompression, our 3-minute decompression, so that we don't have to waste any time. Once we get to our final destination, we can just come up to the surface and end the dive.
We were so far off course. Yeah. You guys are still dragging your asses in the mud though. Good.